My resolution is that solar energy should replace all traditional forms of energy. For my first opposition argument, it's a case attack, and it's that you don't need to replace traditional forms of energy because there's nothing wrong with the traditional energy. Many people believe that the fossil fuels that are being used for traditional forms of energy are running out. But according to Jeffrey Rissman of LiveScience.com, that's not true, and that fossil fuels can actually be recovered, because fossil fuels were actually formed millions of years ago from the remains of plants and animals that have been buried, pressurized, and heated over the years. So in that case, if we can reserve these resources, then they're in fact not being depleted, and therefore we don't have to worry about overusing them. This is important because the only reason we have for not using these traditional forms of energy has been proven wrong. So the evidence we have shows that if these fossil fuels can be replenished and therefore won't run out, then there's no logical reasoning against using the traditional forms of energy, so why change? My second opposition argument is a disadvantage, and it's that solar energy systems are extremely expensive and could potentially be unaffordable for tons of people. Installation of solar energy systems can be up to tens of thousands of dollars, which is extremely expensive and can be totally out of price range for millions of people. If people don't have the money to pay for the solar panels, then they won't have any energy. And there are many people in the U.S. who could argue that it's easily affordable for them to get these solar panels, but unfortunately, with more than 46 million Americans living below the poverty line, that argument just won't stand. Using just the solar energy could put all those people without electricity and all forms of energy just simply because they wouldn't be able to afford it. My last opposition argument is another disadvantage, and it's that if these solar panels were to ever fail, and we'd gotten rid of all traditional forms of energy like they say we should, then we'd be out of luck. We wouldn't have any backup plan to keep the electricity up and running, and any technical mishaps or lack of sun exposure would put people without energy, and by completely replacing the traditional forms of energy, we wouldn't have anything to fall back on, which goes the same for places that don't get very much sun exposure, such as rainy places, or like Seattle, Washington gets only a few weeks of sun a year, but it gets about 38 inches of rain annually, which those people who live there would be suffering without energy or electricity because they're purely focusing on the solar energy that they aren't receiving. Many people may say, like, oh, I live in Southern California, I'll get tons of sun exposure, and therefore I'd be fine, but that won't stand when you look at places that don't get sun exposure at all. So those are my three opposition arguments to the resolution, solar energy should replace all traditional forms of energy. Thank you.